I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. The new league year has kicked off and the free agent frenzy has been going strong for about 4 days. It seemed like it was getting off to a slow start, but the firestorm has certainly turned into a rager. We're going to be talking all the latest moves. I'm going to start with trades, Dennis. Probably one of the biggest ones was one of the earlier trades. DJ Moore, wide receiver from Chicago, traded to the Buffalo Bills. They traded a second. They got DJ Moore in a sixth. They also re-signed Dawson Knox and added Bradley Chubb to the defensive line. But Moore, I like the move. I think Buffalo needed some kind of a more stable receiver, no matter how much Joe Brady said he's still into Keon Coleman. Do you like the move for Moore and the Bills?
I do. I'm trying to find the text that we traded about it where I listed his stats, not his stats, Stephon Diggs. When he first got traded there, Diggs went something like 111 catches, 1,400 yards, and 9 touchdowns a year average for the 4 years. That being said, that's pretty much better than any year DJ Moore has put together. So while I don't necessarily expect Moore to go for 111, 1,409, I think he's going to be able to be in that 80 to 90 catch range, 11 or 1,200 yards maybe. You know, he doesn't always have big TD numbers. So when you've got Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid down there at the end zone, that can hamper your red zone work in the short area. Add into that a quarterback who tends to vulture. So he's probably more in the 4 to 6 touchdown range. I think he could be a high-end wide receiver too, whatever initials those are. A high-end wide receiver too with some wide receiver one side in any given week. I don't think Knox is going to be seriously a fantasy asset unless something happens to Kincaid and he misses time. I think Knox has the ability, if he's the tight end one on a team, to be a low-end tight end one. I just think that Kincaid, with his much smoother physical attributes and much better athleticism, tends to take a lot of those opportunities. Knox flashes. He's a good tight end. And we've seen the 2 tight end offenses in Baltimore and Buffalo now. One of them tends to suffer while one of them puts up good numbers. I think that's Knox. He may be a guy you roster. I don't know that you roster a tight end handcuff per se, but he's a guy you throw at the end of your bench just in case something happens. If you're not rostering Knox, we've seen Knox miss time, or not Knox, Kincaid miss time, and Knox has been able to step up and be productive. So it depends on the depth of your roster there. I think Moore is the clear wide receiver one for Buffalo, but with James Cook and then Josh Allen running the ball like he does, I think sometimes you end up losing some of the touchdown production at the wide receiver position. But I like the trade for DJ Moore because Ben Johnson pretty much said, I ain't into you unless I have to be. He was.
Well, and I like it for Burden, Odunze, and Loveland too.
Yeah. They were just, in Chicago, DJ Moore was basically the prettiest ugly girl at closing time at the bar a few times. That's kind of how Ben Johnson treated him.
He didn't seem to really vibe with Caleb Williams in either of their seasons either, so probably for the best. The Bills weren't the only team to make a move trading-wise for wide receiver. For the second year in a row, the Steelers acquired a wide receiver. They went and got Michael Pittman Jr. from the Indianapolis Colts and signed him to a new 3-year, $59 million deal. They also added Rico Dowdle on a 2-year deal in the backfield. I like the potential addition of weapons. Pittman and DK Metcalf could be a formidable duo. They still have Pat Freiermuth at tight end. But we don't know who the quarterback's going to be.
Yeah, it's, Metcalf's 29. He's got 18 million in dead cap after this year. So if they $49 million dead cap going into this year. So if they want out of the DK Metcalf business, they're going to have to trade him. I feel like at this stage of Aaron Rodgers' career, I don't think him and DK Metcalf are a great fit stylistically. I think Pittman will do well. I don't know what Mike McCarthy's got in store. He's going to be super patient with Rodgers. They talk about, I liked Will Howard when he was coming out. I'd love to see Will Howard get a shot as a Buckeye, OH. But with the addition of Rico Dowdle, they're back to the 2 running back set. I think they're both going to be fantasy viable, but I do think potentially Dowdle usurps a little more volume from Warren than Kenneth Gainwell did. The unpredictability in DK Metcalf's game, I think, is even more unpredictable with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. And he's always been a good soldier. We don't hear him complain a lot like his former college teammate, A.J. Brown. Metcalf pretty much goes out and does what they ask him to do. He'll give you a little wink and a nod when he puts up a big game, like, hey, if you use me, we'd get a lot more of this. But no, I like Pittman's role in Indianapolis was being taken by Tyler Warren. Josh Downs is the little short intermediate, quick guy. Alec Pierce, they signed him to a fat contract. He's the field stretcher. So Warren now steps in. It narrows the funnel there in Indianapolis. I just think Pittsburgh needs to get the quarterback situation resolved sooner rather than later for us to start feeling a little more comfortable and seeing how we project that wide receiver group.
Well, they've kind of done the same thing this year that they did last year. Supposedly we were going to get definitive information on Rodgers before free agency began, and it didn't happen. But they're kind of in a situation right now where we're watching all the pieces go, where if Rodgers isn't coming back, they're kind of screwed. I guess Kirk Cousins still out there. They could go that way. They're not in a great position to draft anyone, and it's not a good draft to need someone. I know they keep talking about how much they like Will Howard, but we'll have to see. Probably the biggest trade news was the trade that happened and then didn't happen. The Ravens on Friday traded 2 firsts for Max Crosby of the Las Vegas Raiders. Then on Tuesday, on the eve of the new league year officially starting in all those trades processing, they said he failed the physical. They backed out and immediately on Wednesday morning signed Trey Hendrickson, formerly of the Bengals, to a long-term deal. There's been a lot of back and forth. Now it seems that Crosby will be staying with the Raiders. Do you think this is a bad look for the Ravens? And do you think the NFL may end up getting involved?
So it looks bad because of the profile of the trade. 2 first-round picks for an elite defender. But let's not get it twisted. This isn't the first player failed physical trade is nullified thing we've seen. We see it happen with free agent signings, and we see it happen with trades. It just happens sometimes. We see players coming out of the NFL Combine all the time that are taken off one team's board because the medical team didn't draft them and then or didn't pass them, and then another team drafts them in the top 10 and they have a great career. Drew Brees ended up in New Orleans instead of Miami because Miami's doctors wouldn't pass his shoulder and New Orleans doctors did. So it's not something that is out of the ordinary. Does it happen a lot? No. Does it happen with players that are that high profile? That's really, I think, what got it. I don't think Eric DeCosta coming out and saying, well, our goal was to have both players. We were actively doing that. I don't think that makes it better like he thought it would. Because it's like, well, yeah, he had a
that
little...
was always nice to say that afterward.
Oh, you froze on me.
Oh, I mean, it's nice to say that afterward, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. No, it would have been, I think that would have been a scary good defense adding Hendrickson and Crosby. I just think that the injury, if you can fail him on the injury, but to say, the injury isn't something that's that bad. Like Aaron Rodgers is probably going to miss more camp than Max Crosby.
Yeah, and they effectively, with everything that they've tried to do to backpedal to cover themselves, tanked his trade value, which I think is maybe part of what has pissed Crosby off. I wonder what the long-term ramifications are going to be, because there was some hemming and hawing that Eric DeCosta misled the Philadelphia Eagles last year about Jair Alexander, who ended up retiring before ever playing a game for the Eagles. And then you had this, there's some, we saw a lot of anonymous quotes from GMs about it being BS and this reflecting poorly on the Ravens. But you also have to wonder what this will do to players who are considering the organization too, because they definitely feel like they sought to tarnish Max Crosby's honesty and value. He didn't seem to appreciate that, nor did his agents. I don't think did the Ravens finish in last place in their division? They didn't. So I don't think they'll have to play the Raiders this year, but that would have been if I was Lamar, I would not have been looking forward to that.
Well, I mean, but in the interim, then the Raiders went out and signed a bunch of people. They brought in Nakobe Dean from Philadelphia, Quay Walker from Green Bay, Kwity Paye from Indianapolis, Taron Johnson from Buffalo, Tyler Linderbaum from Baltimore, and Jalen Naylor from Minnesota. They're going to add Fernando Mendoza. There's talk of Kirk Cousins going to that the Raiders want to bring in Cousins because he's a veteran with a similar play style to Mendoza. All of a sudden, the Raiders could be good.
Well, and they got a new coaching. I actually really like their coaching hire, so maybe it'll end up working out for Crosby, but we shall see. Another team making moves, the New York Jets. Speaking of the Raiders, they traded the Dolphins to get Minkah Fitzpatrick for the defense. Even though he only had one interception last year, he would have been the leader in interceptions for the Jets. Kind of tells you where they're at. But they made another move to reacquire Geno Smith, who was originally drafted by the Jets. They still have Fields. They didn't release him. So what quarterback tandem they have now in New York.
Oh, well, I guess it makes sense then to bring Breece Hall back because you can't throw the ball with those two guys.
I know Garrett Wilson, Adonai Mitchell, and Mason Taylor are probably waiting to see. And I thought was kind of underrated. They lost Elijah Vera Tucker, who I know he was injured some, but wasn't actually a pretty good guard, and they lost him to the Patriots.
Yeah.
It's not like line was a strength for them, and it's not like but Gino seems to be happy. Maybe it'll be a nice story. A lot of people making jokes that he delivered Sam Darnold in the Super Bowl to the Seahawks. He delivered the number 1 overall pick to the Raiders, and now he'll deliver the number 1 overall pick to the Jets. Just gifting all these franchises on the way out. It could happen. He could be. The Jets coaching situation isn't spectacular. Their organization doesn't seem spectacular, but on paper, darn it, they actually have some appealing fantasy assets. They have a top 10 running back. They have a top 10 receiver. They have a receiver number 2 with potential. They have a tight end with potential. Stranger things have happened. Couple of other trades we will just throw out there. Trent McDuffie traded from the Chiefs to the Rams, ends up getting a nice long-term deal. The Rams also bringing back Tyler Higbee. They are clearly in the mode of making a run toward the Super Bowl, so we will see how all that shakes out. We also got Garrett Bradbury traded from the Patriots to the Bears. I thought that was a little bit weird, just because the Patriots line wasn't spectacular, but the Bears definitely needing a center after their center up and retired. The Cowboys traded for Rashawn Gary to give themselves a pass rusher. They had supposedly been in on the Max Crosby trade. They didn't get Max Crosby, so they traded for Gary. Now they said they weren't going to try to pursue Crosby. Nobody can anyway. Any of those trades or moves really jump out to you?
So the Bears one, going into last year, we talked a lot about they revamped their offensive line, and they gel. We see a lot of times teams will bring in a couple free agents at the offensive line, and while talented players, those 5 guys have to work as one unit, and it doesn't always work out. Well, last year they got off to a slow start in Chicago, and then as the season went on, the line really picked up. I think having to replace was it Dahlman that retired?
Yeah,
replacing him with Bradbury. Bradbury started out with the Vikings, had some good years. I think he's kind of at the tail end. I think he's a guy that is functionally good, but I don't know that he necessarily he's not a guy that's going to win you games. He's not going to shut down a nose tackle. I think he'll play fine. Will Joe Thuney and the other guys around him continue to perform like they did last year? Caleb's got plus mobility, so that's good. They've got a good running game with Monangai and Swift, nice receiving core. So I don't hate it when compared to the other options that were available. It isn't like all pro centers are growing on trees anywhere. It seems like the Packers are just getting rid of everybody on defense. They just, it is what it is. It'll be interesting to see it. There's been a revelation that Jordan Love can't put the team on his shoulders and carry them to victory. And so they're trying to do a quick tear down and then rebuild. Josh Jacobs is probably getting towards the end, losing Emmanuel Wilson, and they'll replace him with Chris Brooks and probably some other free agent.
I mean, if Marshawn Lloyd ever is healthy enough, presumably that's why they drafted him.
I mean, he's the Stetson Bennett of running backs, I swear.
I know he only appeared. I went to go look because I was doing a great regrading the position group from the 24 draft. In 2 years, he's appeared in one game and had 6 carries. And I remember That seemed like an interesting landing spot and a potential landing spot. They've never done anything, and he can't stay healthy. We move on to the position groups. We'll start at quarterback. Probably the biggest notable signing, Malik Willis, goes to the Miami Dolphins. We have thought this is where they were going. Jeff Hafley has talked about how much he likes him. 3 years, $67.5 million. Not a terrible commitment for a starting quarterback, which seems to be what he is projecting to be. They released Tua. Really small sample size in Green Bay. I don't think they asked him to do a ton. When you look at his stats, they're not impressive. He won games. It was a very quality backup. Is that going to translate? I guess we'll see. Miami is a weird team that seems like they're in the midst of kind of a weird rebuild too. They already released Hill. Supposedly Waddle and Achan are on the block. They brought in Tutu Atwell, so at least they'll have one burner down there. But what do you think of the Willis signing?
It's one of those little saucepan burners, though.
What do you think of that Willis signing?
I'm conflicted. I don't hate it because he has played well now that he's gotten some NFL time under his belt. I refer frequently to the Dynasty Nerds 35 game quarterback threshold. Well, Willis played 38 games in college. The downside is when you look at it, 15 of those games were at Auburn, where he had 14 pass attempts in them. So while he may have technically played in those games, it wasn't like he was out there full time. So he had 23 starts, but it was at Liberty University, noted powerhouse in college football. Then coming out, there was a lot of talk, he's going to be a first-round pick, this, that, and the other. And I think he ended up being a fourth-round pick. He was the second quarterback drafted, if I remember. But he was there. Kenny Pickett was the crown jewel of that quarterback draft, the only first-rounder. I'm old. I play into being old. I embrace being old. I don't mind getting old at all. I remember when it was not uncommon to draft a quarterback and have him sit on your bench for 3 or 4 years before he ever saw any meaningful playing time. And lo and behold, here we are with Malik Willis going into his 5th year, small sample size. And Kurt Warner did a little breakdown of his stuff last year. And while he played some games, Warner said that he had 28 true quarterback dropbacks where he had to drop back, read a defense, things like that. I think you can say what you want about Kurt Warner, but I thought he played the quarterback position pretty well. So that gives me a little bit of pause, but also quarterbacks nowadays don't necessarily play the position like Kurt Warner did either. Willis is big. He's 6'1", 220. He's got really good mobility, a big arm. It's going to come down to, does Miami give him enough time to grow into the position starting every week? We see it all the time with young quarterbacks. They're not expected to play. They come in. We're like, why hasn't this guy been playing? Look at all he does. 3 games later, after defenses have some tape and NFL coordinators have had a chance to identify some tendencies and break down some strengths and weaknesses, and now this rookie's face planting, or this young quarterback's face planting, and can't seem to figure out the adjustments. I think having 5 years of NFL coaching is going to benefit Malik Willis more than maybe someone like, say, J.J. McCarthy did. The coaching he had, because he just didn't have the same amount of time, and then when he got thrown in, he had to react. I like Willis. I'm hopeful. It is only a 3-year contract. It runs until he's 29. If he's good, he's looking at the franchise tag at a bare minimum going into his age 30 season. If he's good, he's likely looking at another 3 or 4 year contract for bigger money than he's getting now. they can get out of it after 2 with just $7.5 million in dead cap.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. So they brought in Bobby Slowick as the offensive coordinator. Some people credited him really with helping CJ Stroud, who had a phenomenal rookie season. The second year wasn't as great, but last year I didn't think was incredible after they were like, oh, it's all Bobby Slowick's fault. Maybe it wasn't.
Right.
Mayhaps it was not. So, we'll see what they can do. I think it's also a question of Dolphins feel like they are plunging into full rebuild mode, and they weren't incredible last year. If they move Waddle and or Achan, that you not only put Malik Willis in there, but like his best receiver is Brian Westbrook-Akini, and his best running back is Ollie Gordon. That leaves them with
Jalen Wright
or Jalen Wright. I mean, yeah.
I think Casey Washington. No, is it Malik Washington? Somebody down there.
Well, they got Atwell, so they'll just bomb it down the field. They brought back Greg Dulcich. There you go. Daniel Jones, who got the transition tag, did re-sign with the Colts. It was rumored at one point it was going to be 4 years, $161 million. Instead, it ends up being 2 years, $88 million. Considering he's coming back off an Achilles, may not see him a lot this first year. But what did you think about this deal?
I'm sure Jones wanted a longer term deal. He's going to be, 30 when it ends, 31 maybe. He's been around a few years. The Colts have a pretty good team. I think they've Braden Smith is gone. They got to do some work.
He is 28 years old right now.
So they got to do some work revamping the O-line. They've had some losses there the last couple of seasons. But you've got Jonathan Taylor. You've got Alec Pierce, who he showed chemistry with Alec Pierce.
Did you like that contract? Since we're mentioning Alec Pierce, he re-signs 4 years, 116. I thought it was way too much money, but apparently they must view him as the number one receiver because they gave him that huge money deal and then immediately traded Pittman. So it's Pierce, Josh Downs, and Tyler Warren. Looks like.
I don't. It feels like somebody was going to give him that money. And the Colts were like faced with the decision of do we think Pittman fits us better? Do we think Pierce fits us better? They drafted Tyler Warren, and so I think they felt like Warren would be able to provide.
It's just fascinating. Pierce went from a guy we thought they were pretty much actively trying to replace when they drafted Adonai Mitchell to getting $29 million a year to be their number one wide receiver, an average of $29 million a year.
So it shows that, and this is stuff I try to impart to my son who is launching his athletic career. You don't need to worry about what everybody else is doing. You don't need to worry about what people are saying. You put your head down, you go out and you do the work. So the media is talking, they're working on getting rid of him. They brought in Mitchell to replace him. He just showed up every day and he put in the work. And they liked it. And whether, who's the new owner? Carly Ursay.
Yeah, Carly Ursay.
Maybe she thinks he's cute. I don't know. Anyways, that sounded very sexist, and I apologize to our woman fan out there.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think that, obviously Anthony Richardson hasn't been able to find any trade interest. It could end up being Anthony Richardson as the starter for a little bulk of the start of the season because he's still on the roster, and they're going to have some kind of backup. We'll see. I know of the Colts fans we have in our show league were none too pleased about the entire arc of the offseason so far for their team, and the early NFL over-unders came out, and Indianapolis squarely pegged as being third in their own division, which seems to be like where they've been for a while. So I mean, you got to wonder how long Chris Ballard stays.
I don't know, if Indianapolis is down for being pegged.
A couple other veterans who signed 1-year rehab prove-it deals. Kyler Murray just signed a 1-year deal with the Vikings, likely to be the starter there over J.J. McAccident. And Tua Tagovailoa signing a 1-year deal with the Falcons. In both cases, Kyler and Tua getting hefty paydays from the teams that released them, so they signed veteran minimum deals. Feels a little bit like the path that we saw Russell Wilson take a couple years ago when he got released by Denver and ended up with Pittsburgh. Of the two, I probably like the Murray potential better because of Kevin O'Connell, although I do think Michael Penix Jr. coming off of his third knee reconstruction too is likely to start some games there too.
I got to be honest, I would not be surprised if Tua started all season if he's healthy. Just because Penix will coming off another injury, he's going to be delayed getting on the field. Kevin Stefanski is going to run, play action, drop back, that type of offense. Lots of Kyle Pitts, lots of Drake London, and Bijan Robinson is going to get a lot of carries. Now, Robinson is better than any running back that Stefanski had in Cleveland. I love you, Nick Chubb, but they just you didn't perform in the passing game, whether it was because they didn't give you the shot or not. But you got old and whatnot. But Bijan is an elite talent at running back. I think Tua could come out hot and end up holding on to the position when Penix gets back, because if he's hot and they're playing well and they're winning games, and the defense is making moves as well, why are they going to go in and upset the apple cart? Kevin Stefanski does not have an allegiance to Michael Penix. And it's not like
neither does the new general manager. No
Right.
one that thought an 8th pick on him was a good idea is still there.
So if Tua plays well, they may very well say, look, we're going to keep riding this guy till the end. Kyler is probably going to be the better fantasy asset. They've got Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson.
Potentially, although Jefferson supposedly has been on the trade market and Jordan Addison's out there posting pictures of himself in Bears jerseys when he's not getting arrested.
Right. So
these are not signs of a healthy organization, is all I'm going to say.
I just think Kyler's legs are going to help him, for the 10 games he's healthy, be the better fantasy quarterback.
Yeah. Can't be much worse than they had last year. Collection of guys signing, likely to be backups, maybe spot starters. Kyle Allen signs 1-year deal with the Bills. Mitch Trubisky, who was with the Bills, signed a 2-year deal with the Titans. Marcus Mariota back to the Commanders. Kenny Pickett going to the Carolina Panthers. Gardner Minshew on a 1-year deal to the Arizona Cardinals. Case Keenum re-ups with the Bears for 2 years. They also have Tyson Bagent, so he's probably QB3. Sam Howell, a 1-year deal with the Cowboys, could be QB3 there. Teddy Bridgewater going back to the Lions, while Jake Browning leaves Cincinnati to sign a 1-year deal with the Bengals, with the Buccaneers. The only one that I had moderate interest in is Gardner Minshew, and it's because it seems like they've said now Minshew and Jacoby Brissett are going to vie to be the starters in Arizona. So I guess it's you're saying there's a chance. Otherwise, none of those guys probably on my dynasty roster.
Yeah, they're all nothing but handcuffs. I mean, Trubisky potentially because Daboll knows him, and so if they end up with Cam Ward struggling a little bit, I don't think Trubisky is going to win the job coming out of camp, anything like that. Mariota's a handcuff. It's a lot of nothing.
Yeah. Let's move to running backs. The big domino in the market was Kenneth Walker. He went early, 3-year, $43 million deal with the Chiefs. I was sad because I don't like the Chiefs, but for fantasy, I thought this was actually a pretty good option for him.
So we just have to wait and see. Will the return of Eric Bieniemy will Andy Reid kind of let him go back to having a bell cow? You know, I don't think that he has had a true bell cow back since Shady McCoy and then Brian Westbrook before that. You know, they need somebody. We need him to have somebody that's going to be out there and performing like he did after Charbonnet got hurt. That being said, the fear with Kenneth Walker is, he strained an oblique again, because he can get dinged up. We have seen that, and that's to be honest. If I had to put money on why Seattle was like, yeah, we'll let you go, we're not going to pay you that, it's because they're like, you're probably going to strain an oblique picking up the check.
Well, in the last year he was in Kansas City, Bieniemy was 2022. His running back, that was Pacheco's first year when they got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and that didn't work out. But that was Pacheco's best year: 170 carries, 830 yards, 5 touchdowns, averaging 4.9 yards per carry. And that was when they had Jerick McKinnon, who had 56 receptions for 512 yards. So I at least think there's some potential, and Kansas City certainly doesn't have anyone else. The second biggest domino was Travis Etienne. He signs a 4-year, $61 million deal with the New Orleans Saints. I like the player and the potential with the Saints, especially playing in Kellen Moore's offense. We've seen some of what he has done with running backs in the past. But Alvin Kamara is still there for the time being. It makes me wonder what the mix is going to be. But did you like Etienne? Obviously, a pretty healthy contract means that they see him as a feature, part of the offense.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know what the benefit is of keeping Kamara around. If you're going to commit that kind of money to Travis Etienne, I guess I think Kamara is the much more natural pass catcher than Etienne. Etienne is fast. To be fair, I think Kamara is probably the better natural inside runner than Etienne. He just is older and slower, and father time catches up with everybody. So as much as I love Alvin Kamara, and he's always the subject of my "what's the worst trade you ever made" story, where I traded him for the 201 and the 209 so I could draft Zay Jones and Marlon Mack, and proceed to watch the guy I traded Kamara to win the league that year. But anyways, enough about me. Now, I think there's been a little talk that Kamara and his restructure of money and stuff, they're kind of paving the way for him to retire. I don't know if he's going to retire. He feels like a New Orleans institution, a la Drew Brees. And so I could see him saying, I just don't want to go play anywhere else. And if you guys feel like I'm done, I'm just going to hang my cleats up and go collect some beads down on, I forget what street it is there in New Orleans, down in the French Quarter.
Yeah.
Get a little broader there. So, but now I think if Devin Neal is healthy, I think he's a good complement to Travis Etienne. So I don't think they're necessarily worried that they'll be in a hole if Kamara does retire. They could probably use another wide receiver to go with Olave. Right now it's Devon Vele, Mason Tipton. unless they think Jawan Johnson's going to be that guy.
Yeah, we'll see where they end up. A couple of guys that signed 2-year deals who are likely to be the starter for their team. Leader of a committee, Tyler Algier. We were excited for him, but 2-year, $12.25 million deal with the Cardinals was not exactly the ideal landing spot I was hoping for. And then Denver brings back J.K. Dobbins. I thought it was a 1 year, $8 million, but they changed it to 2 years and $16 million. And I won't argue that he did some nice things when he was on the field, but as a Broncos fan, that signing left me cold.
I think Dobbins he's insurance, which is weird to say for a guy that gets as injured as he does. I don't believe that Sean Payton believes RJ Harvey can handle the load. And even when he had somebody as big as Kamara and somebody as sturdy as Mark Ingram, he spread the ball around amongst them. So that's just a function of the way Sean Payton is going to run his offense.
I just would have rather gone and gotten Tyler Algier.
I feel you, bro. I feel you. I would have much rather Algier went there too.
Because they still have Connor. They have Benson. They brought back Bam Knight. So they don't have an impressive quarterback situation.
My thing,
I don't know what to make of the Rams or the Cardinals.
Starting to lean into Tyler Algier as the head of the committee.
I think he's the head of the committee, but is it I think he could have gotten a bell cow or a 70% spot and been great. And I don't know if Arizona's it.
Well, Connor restructured his contract so he didn't get cut. He's not getting a bunch of money. They basically were like, hey, we'd like to keep you around, but you're gonna have to take this much money. We'll guarantee it, but that's all you're gonna get. If you want to stay here, that's it. We're bringing in this other guy. Benson, I still don't know what to make of him. But I think, to me, I don't think it matters if it's a 2-headed monster or a 3-headed monster in the desert. I think Tyler Algier's market share is the same.
A couple of other guys who signed 1 or 2 year deals that will all be part of committee solutions at running back. Kenneth Gainwell going to the Buccaneers, 2 years, $14 million. Chris Rodriguez to the Jaguars, 2 years, $10 million. Keaton Mitchell, 2 years, $9.5 million to the Chargers. Isaiah Pacheco went to the Lions. I didn't see a length or a dollar value on that. Rachaad White, a 1 year deal for the Commanders. Aaron Jones, a restructured 1 year deal to return to the Vikings. And Emmanuel Wilson, a 1 year, $2.1 million deal to go to the Seahawks. I will say, of that group, the two that interested me the most, one is Emmanuel Wilson, because we've seen him fill in well, and Charbonnet, coming off that torn ACL in the playoffs, may not be fully ready to go. And Chris Rodriguez, because 500 yards and 6 touchdowns, 7 starts for a dreadful Commanders team down the stretch, is why he probably didn't get a lot of notice. The Jaguars, with Etienne going to New Orleans, have Bishal Tootin and LaQuint Allen, and I don't remember if they even have anybody else on their team.
Yeah, the thing with Rodriguez is that he's just so lumbering and non-twitchy. And so I don't know what he brings to the table other than, well, here's a 225-pound guy we can slam into the line.
It was a decent contract, though,
Yeah.
And Bishal Tootin did not strike me at any point in time during last year as a guy who could carry the full load. So,
yeah, it's going to be something interesting to watch. It feels almost like we're going to see a lot of throwing the ball in Jacksonville with I'd love to say Brian Thomas, but probably not him.
They've said that he is not on the trade market, so maybe it is him, because we know they're sliding the other Travis Hunter back to DB.
I think Gainwell, I like him as taking the Rachaad White role. It was a bummer they did tender Sean Tucker. I thought he was going to get a shot, but they did come out and say they tendered him.
I thought they didn't tender him.
They didn't at first, but I saw something late that they did go ahead and tender him. I like the Emmanuel Wilson. He was Josh Jacobs light, about the same size, about the same speed, about the same, just a little bit less at all the same marks that Jacobs hit. Going out to Seattle, I think he's going to have a good opportunity until Charbonnet gets back. It'll be him and George Holani, who's also coming off an injury, and Kenny McIntosh is their fourth stringer. I think that Wilson will get a chance to earn a role to keep when Charbonnet comes back. And I think McDonald will want to continue to use two backs, and Wilson will end up being that other back with Charbonnet.
Moving on to wide receiver, we talked about Alec Pierce. The second biggest domino was probably Mike Evans signing a 3-year deal with the 49ers. Came out today and said he thought the 49ers were one piece away from the Super Bowl, and he is that one piece. The 49ers, ironically, have also yet to release Brandon Ayuk. They said they're shopping him in the trade market. I actually liked Evans going there. Probably means Juwan Jennings definitely not back. Evans, Pearsall, Kittle. They brought back Jake Tonjes, McCaffrey for however many games he's healthy in a year after he was good. But I think Mike Evans could do some nice things there.
Yeah, he's bigger than Jennings. He's slower than Pearsall. He's going to he's going to give them a role that they haven't necessarily had outside of George Kittle. Somebody's going to have to step up and be their downfield guy. And I don't know that Pearsall can do that, which makes me feel like that they will find a way to get Jennings back in the fold. Pearsall just, for whatever reason, he can't stay healthy and ends up kind of he'll flash and we'll get excited. But Demarcus Robinson's the next guy up if Jennings isn't there. So I'd hate to think that that's going to be their answer.
Unless they end up keeping Ayuk. And this ends up being like,
psych.
Probably the next wave of guys at the receiver position. We saw Wan'Dale Robinson, a 4-year, $78 million deal with the Titans. Romeo Doubs went to the Patriots on a 4-year, $80 million deal, and Rashid Shaheed went back to the Seattle Seahawks, 3 years, $51 million. Seahawks have all three of their primary receivers back, plus their tight ends. That seems like a good deal for them. The Wan'Dale one, obviously Brian Daboll, when he was with the Giants, figured out how to use Wan'Dale Robinson pretty effectively, had some good years. Tennessee needed a lot of help at playmakers, and that feels like a pretty large financial commitment for a guy that I don't feel like profiles as really a number one receiver.
Well, I think Wan'Dale and Romeo Doubs and Jalen Naylor all are right now being forced into wide receiver 1 roles when they're really wide receiver 2s or 3s. Wan'Dale was productive, and God bless him. Strike while the iron's hot. Tennessee's an up-and-coming team, theoretically. Young quarterback, new coach. Got to turn it around. He's better than Calvin Ridley, I believe. Losing Chigakonkwo, they brought in somebody else, Daniel Bellinger. It feels like it's going to be Gunnar Helm as the receiving tight end, Bellinger is the blocking tight end. Now, again, it's a great example of a new offensive coordinator or coach going to a new team, bringing in a couple guys that he knows his offense, and Bellinger and Wandale know Daboll's offense, so they're going to come in and train the other people on how to operate in that offense. Shaheed, I like the fit. It felt like when he wasn't signed immediately, it's like, oh, they're going to let him go out and test free agency, and maybe they did, but you were starting to get the sense that Seattle was like, yeah, we're good with Cooper Kupp. Well, now they bring Shaheed back, and it's like, yeah, we're good with Cooper Kupp as our 3.
Yeah, that makes more sense. A couple other receivers that signed deals, Olamide Zaccheaus and Jahan Dotson are going to the Falcons. The Chiefs re-signed Tyquan Thornton on a 2-year, $11 million deal. Kendrick Bourne going to the Cardinals on a 2-year, $11 million deal. You mentioned Jalen Naylor to the Raiders, 3 years, $35 million. Calvin Austin, a 1-year, $4.5 million deal to the Giants. Feels like he could fill that Wandale slot. Tutu Atwell to the Dolphins on a 1-year deal. John Mechie to the Panthers on a 1-year deal. Khalif Raymond to the Bears on a 1-year deal, probably more of a special teamer. They even said Sky Moore signing with the Packers. He was going to be a special teamer, and the Broncos re-signed little Jordan Humphrey. Just can't get away from him. The only one in that group that sort of intrigued me was Naylor, both because of the money and because the Raiders don't have any receivers.
Yeah, it's almost a function of it's got to be somebody, and he's the best of the lot. Now they're going to add probably a couple receivers in the draft. A lot of mock drafts I've seen have them pairing Mendoza with Surratt or Cooper. So it kind of maintain that college connection. Thornton's opportunities coming because they, Rashee Rice is, living that gangster life. I just don't know what to make there, But Naylor's he's gonna get opportunity. Tutu's a bit player. That's all he is. I kind of low-key like the Mechie signing. I'd have liked it better for opportunity's sake if he stayed with the Jets. But he's backing up Xavier Legette right now. And so he's fighting Legette and Jalen Coker for opportunities in Carolina.
They're just not an incredibly high volume passing offense either, though. So
yeah, that's going to be problematic.
Moving on to tight ends, probably the biggest signing, Isaiah Likely, a big 3-year deal to the Giants, goes back to Coach John Harbaugh. Kind of crushes a little bit of my Theo Johnson excitement because I think Likely is likely the starting tight end there. Could be good for fantasy, though.
Did you just hit mute on yourself?
No.
Oh. Well, I'll talk for a minute about Isaiah Likely and then come back. So I think the Likely signing is good. Going to Harbaugh, familiar. We'll be able to slide right into a starting role there. They got Malik Neighbors. They like Jackson Dart. Who'd have thought, last year when we're all like, yeah, it's going to be Likely and Kolar next year, Andrews is going to be gone, and Andrews is the last man standing. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but, that's what it is. I don't know what to make of Travis Kelce. He's still good. I mean, he was tight end 4 or 6 last year or something, but it's just not what we're used to. So I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and hop out and hop back in, so hopefully I can hear you when I get back.
Among the other Travis Kelce, he returns to the Chiefs, going to play at least one more year, gets the 1-year deal there. Cade Otton re-signed with the Buccaneers, a 3-year deal. Charlie Kolar, a 3-year deal to go to the Chargers. I saw some people were wondering what does that mean for Rondé Gadsden. I think he's still more of their pass catching Kohler, probably a blocker. A 3-year deal for the Commanders. Noah Fant going to the New Orleans Saints on a 2-year deal. They also have Juwan Johnson, so another messy situation. Jake Chonges, a 2-year, $8 million deal with the 49ers, kind of interesting. Greg Dulcich signs a 1-year deal back to the Dolphins. We mentioned Daniel Bellinger going over to the Titans. Austin Hooper on a 1-year deal to the Atlanta Falcons. The Eagles re-signed Grant Calcaterra and added Johnny Munt. Those become a little more interesting because Dallas Goedert is a free agent and remains unsigned. And then Foster Moreau to the Texans. So, Dennis, in answer to your question, Travis Kelce was tight end 3 in PPR last year. I think of the rest of these tight end signings, the ones that I like the best, Chigo Okonkwo to the Commanders, because we've seen them use a tight end, although that further crushes any hope I had that Ben Sinnott was ever going to be anything. I think this tells you it's not looking good. I also like the Tonjes signing because he was very good in filling in for George Kittle last year, and Kittle is still there, but Kittle has been known to miss games, and it seemed like Tonjes was somebody that Brock Purdy trusted immediately. He is actually kind of – it's weird to be excited about a handcuff tight end, but he's also a guy when they're low on wide receivers that was filling in and making some receptions even when Kittle was healthy enough to play. So I probably liked those two the best. Kelce is what he is. Did anything else stand out to you at tight end?
I guess, my note with Hooper is I guess you can go home again. No.
Well, so wasn't Kevin Stefanski the one that gave Hooper a massive contract to come to Cleveland?
Yeah. So
if Stefanski just can't quit him.
I don't think there's a lot of fantasy relevance. I love Noah Fant's athletic ability. Never been able to convert it to fantasy production or NFL production. He'll flash here or there. He's going to be behind Juwan Johnson. And maybe they move Juwan Johnson out into the old, who was that cat?
Jimmy Graham?
No, Marcus Colston role. And let Fant kind of play more in line. But it doesn't feel like there's anything. Kohler to the Chargers. He's going to play the same role there to Rondé Gadsden that he did when he played in Baltimore. He's going to be the inline guy, allowing the other person to go out for run pass routes. Cade Otton, unfortunately, is as productive as he can be. They just, if they've got 3 healthy wide receivers, they just don't use him. And, if you go into a game and they're starting wide receivers 4, 5, and 6, Cade Otton's getting you 70 yards, 6 catches, and 2 touchdowns. But if they got their 3 starting wide receivers in Tampa, Cade Otton probably going to block 77 times.
Yeah, and I'll be curious. Hopefully Tampa Bay does not spend a high draft pick on a receiver again, because then maybe we can get Jalen McMillan and Emeka Egbuka and Chris Godwin actually out there going since Evans is gone. Oh, yeah, I forgot about him. Well, that pretty well does it. There were some bigger defensive signings. I don't know if there was anything that stood out to you. I'm sure we're going to continue to have. There are still quite a few names that haven't pegged down. So when we are back next week, we will look at the rest of the news, probably try to see who some of the free agency winners and losers have been, shaking the dust out. I finished redoing my dynasty rankings right before free agency. So I'm going to probably go make some tweaks now that we've seen where some of these players landed and maybe crushed some of our hopes and dreams. So we will see how they are going, but that'll do it for us. Dennis, any closing thoughts?
I don't know what's going on with my internet today. It's been doing so good. We're getting storms. We've got storms rolling in. Maybe that's it. But I appreciate everybody's patience with my glitchy internet.
Well, hopefully you'll get some stability for next week, stability that these NFL franchises just haven't found. You can like and subscribe, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Until next week, we will see you. Have a wonderful weekend.